I work the ticket counter at Federation Square in Melbourne, and last Tuesday this American woman walked up demanding immediate service while 6 people stood waiting. She announced she had a VIP pass from her hotel concierge. I told her we don't have VIP passes. She pulled out a business card from a tour company and said, "This guarantees priority service everywhere in Australia because American tourists generate 40% of Melbourne's economy." I looked at the card. It was a standard discount voucher for a hop-on bus. When I explained she'd need to queue like everyone else, she responded that in America, hotels always provide express access to major attractions. "It's an international standard," she insisted. I pointed to the 6 locals who'd been waiting. She said they probably didn't have appointments anyway. The Australian next to her, a bloke in work boots, just said, "Love, we've all got somewhere to be." She spent 4 minutes explaining that Americans pioneered the concept of efficient service queues in the 1950s, which is why we should recognize their cultural contribution. She eventually joined the line, but stood diagonal across 2 positions because angular queuing reduces overall wait times by 30%. She'd read it in an airport magazine. My cousin manages a bottle shop in Brisbane, and an American guy came in looking for wine around 6 on a Saturday. The shop was packed with people grabbing drinks before dinner. He walked past 12 people waiting at the counter and tried to flag down my cousin, who was serving someone else. When my cousin finished and called next in line, the American stepped forward. A woman who'd been waiting said, "Mate, there's a queue." He looked confused, then said he wasn't cutting because, in American retail, the most engaged customer gets served first, and I made eye contact. He explained that Australian shops must be using an outdated European system. My cousin pointed to the line. The guy said that was inefficient and that American business schools teach dynamic customer engagement models. He started explaining that standing in fixed positions creates bottlenecks, which is why American stores use fluid customer flow architecture. My cousin just kept serving people in order. The American finally waited his turn but announced to everyone that Australia could boost retail productivity by 60% if they adopted American customer interaction protocols. He'd apparently written a LinkedIn post about it. I drive trams in Melbourne, and last month an American couple boarded during rush hour with 2 massive suitcases. They planted themselves right in the aisle during peak commute. An older woman asked them to move to the luggage area. The husband said they were fine where they were because, in American subway systems, passengers choose their own optimal positions based on personal safety assessments. The wife added that aisle positioning provides quickest emergency exit access. Someone mentioned that 20 people needed to get past. The American guy explained that in New York, passengers navigate around obstacles as part of urban adaptability training. He said Australians probably weren't used to high-density public transport. I announced over the speaker to clear the aisle. He moved maybe 30 centimeters and said that met international transit safety standard. His wife mentioned they'd taken metros in 8 countries. Another passenger, this builder covered in dust, said, "Mate, just shove the bags under the seat." The American replied that under-seat storage compromises structural integrity of luggage, and that Americans prefer to maintain visual contact with belongings due to higher theft rates overseas. He'd done a risk assessment. They stood there blocking everyone for 4 stops before finally dragging their bags to the luggage section after 12 people squeezed past them. The wife told me as they got off that Australian trams would benefit from designated premium standing zones like American buses have. My brother's a lifeguard at Bondi, and an American family set up their entire day camp right at the bottom of the access path where everyone walks to the beach. Umbrellas, coolers, chairs, towels, the full setup blocking the main thoroughfare. A local asked them to shift down 5 meters. The dad said they'd arrived early to claim premium positioning, which is standard practice at American beaches. "Early bird gets the beachfront," he announced. My brother walked over and explained they were blocking the access route. The American said their setup was within legal boundaries because they weren't touching the wooden walkway itself. He'd measured it. The mum added that in California, people respect territorial claims based on arrival time. My brother said about 60 people per hour use that path. The dad responded that in America, pedestrian flow naturally adjusts around stationary beach installations and that Australians seemed inflexible about personal beach space. He mentioned that Miami Beach has the same traffic and nobody complains. Another beachgoer pointed out that Miami Beach is about 8 times larger. The American replied that proportional scaling doesn't change fundamental access principles. They stayed there for an hour before my brother formally asked them to relocate. As they moved, the dad told everyone nearby that Australian beaches could learn from American spatial efficiency models and that he was surprised we hadn't adopted zone-based positioning systems. I'm a receptionist at a dental clinic in Perth, and an American patient showed up 15 minutes late for his appointment. I told him we'd need to reschedule because the dentist had moved to the next patient. He said that in America, medical appointments have built-in buffer times of 20 to 30 minutes, so being 15 minutes late is technically being 5 minutes early under international healthcare standard. I explained we run on time here. He replied that Australian medical facilities must have much lighter patient loads because American clinics manage dynamic scheduling to accommodate client flexibility. He wanted to speak to the practice manager about implementing a more sophisticated appointment system. I said the dentist could see him in 2 days. He told me that gap indicated poor schedule optimization and that American dental offices use predictive booking algorithms to minimize wait times. He asked if we'd considered hiring a scheduling consultant. I mentioned we'd been running smoothly for 12 years. He said that longevity doesn't equal efficiency and that many Australian businesses operate on outdated models because they're isolated from American innovations. He spent 10 minutes explaining how Harvard Business School students study appointment management systems. The woman waiting after him, just a regular local, said, "Mate, your tooth's not falling out." He booked the appointment for 2 days later, but said he'd write a Google review about our scheduling rigidity and lack of customer-centric flexibility protocols. My sister's an office manager at a law firm in Sydney, and we hired an American consultant for a 3-month project. First day, he introduced himself by listing his university degrees and professional achievements for 4 minutes. Then he asked everyone else to share their credentials. Most people just said their name and role. He seemed disappointed and suggested we lacked professional presentation skills. At lunch, he sat at the managing partner's usual spot in the meeting room. Someone mentioned that seat was typically reserved. He said that in American corporate culture, seating hierarchies are considered outdated and that hot desking principles apply to lunch spaces, promoting egalitarian collaboration. He'd read about it in Forbes. The managing partner arrived, saw him there, and just grabbed another chair. The American took this as validation of his point and announced that Australian firms were finally embracing American workplace democracy. He spent the afternoon emailing articles about flat organizational structures to everyone. During afternoon tea, someone mentioned the office footy tipping competition. He asked if that was sanctioned by HR. When they explained it was just for fun, he expressed concern about gambling in the workplace and mentioned that American companies have strict policies. He suggested our firm was exposing itself to liability. My sister explained it was $5 and completely voluntary. He replied that small-scale normalization of betting culture explains why Australia has higher gambling rates than America. He'd researched it over lunch. He spent 3 months trying to restructure our filing system to match American legal standards and seemed genuinely confused why nobody wanted his comprehensive improvement plan. I wait tables at a pub in Adelaide, and an American couple sat down and immediately asked for our specials menu. I told them the specials are on the board behind the bar. The husband walked over, read them, came back and asked why we don't print individual menus. I said we change them daily. He replied that in America, restaurants use QR codes for dynamic menu updates, allowing real-time modifications without environmental waste. His wife added that chalkboards are charming but inefficient for modern dining. They ordered fish and chips. When I brought it out 15 minutes later, the husband asked why it took so long. I said 15 minutes is standard. He told me that in American kitchens, fried fish takes 8 minutes maximum, and Australian restaurants probably lack proper commercial equipment. His wife mentioned they'd eaten at a fish place in Boston where everything came out in 6 minutes. I explained our fish is fresh and hand-battered. He said frozen fish is actually fresher because it's snap-frozen on the boat, which is what American chains learned decades ago. When they finished, they left $3 on a $40 bill. I didn't say anything. As they walked out, the husband told me we'd make better tips if we improved turnaround times and mentioned that American service industry workers understand the correlation between speed and gratuity. He gave me his business card in case we wanted consulting on restaurant efficiency metric. My mate runs a coffee cart in Fremantle markets, and an American tourist ordered a long black. When my mate handed it over, the guy asked where the cream and sugar station was. My mate pointed to the milk and sugar on the counter. The American said that in proper American coffee service, there should be multiple cream options, 4 sugar varieties, and flavor syrups. My mate said we've got milk and sugar. The American replied that limited customization options indicate a lack of customer-centric thinking and that American coffee culture revolutionized beverage personalization. He asked if my mate had heard of Starbucks. My mate said yes. The American explained that Starbucks succeeded by offering 87,000 drink combinations, proving consumers want choice. He suggested Australian coffee shops were 30 years behind American innovation. My mate mentioned that long blacks don't usually need much. The American said that's prescriptive menu design and that in America, the customer decides what they need, not the server. He spent 5 minutes explaining how American consumer empowerment transformed retail. An older woman waiting behind him said, "Mate, it's just coffee." He turned and told her that dismissive attitudes towards service excellence explain why Australian hospitality businesses have lower profit margins than American equivalent. He'd read a McKinsey report about it. He eventually added milk and left, but not before taking a photo of the cart and saying he'd use it as a case study in his business podcast about international service quality gap. My uncle's a chef at a restaurant in Darwin, and an American couple ordered steaks medium rare. When he brought them out, the husband cut into his and said it was overcooked. My uncle looked at it. It was perfect medium rare. The guy said that in America, medium rare means cool red center, and this was warm pink, which is actually medium. My uncle explained that's medium rare. The American pulled out his phone and showed him a USDA temperature chart. He said Australian chefs obviously use different standards, probably because we're more isolated from global culinary training. His wife agreed and mentioned that American steakhouses set the international benchmark. My uncle offered to recook it. The husband said that'd make it worse and that the issue was systematic, not fixable by additional cooking. He asked if my uncle had trained in America. My uncle said no. The American replied that explained it and that serious chefs do stages in New York or Chicago to learn proper technique. He ate the steak anyway but spent the meal telling nearby tables that Australian beef is excellent but preparation methods are inconsistent with international standards. He left a note with the bill suggesting my uncle watch YouTube videos from American Culinary Institute. His wife added that they weren't complaining, just trying to help Australian hospitality improve to American levels. They gave the meal 3 stars online and wrote that while the ambience was nice, the kitchen lacked technical precision common in United States establishments. I'm a taxi driver in Cairns, and I picked up an American couple from the airport heading to Palm Cove. The husband immediately asked how long the drive was. I said about 25 minutes. He replied that Google Maps showed 18 minutes and asked why I was taking a longer route. I explained that Maps doesn't account for current traffic. He said that in America, GPS technology is more advanced and accurately predicts real-time conditions. His wife added that their Uber drivers in the States always match the app's estimate. I drove the normal route up the Captain Cook Highway. After 10 minutes, the husband asked why we weren't on the highway. I said we were on the highway. He insisted highways have at least 4 lanes in each direction. I explained this is the main road. He replied that by American infrastructure standards, this would be classified as a rural route, not a highway, and that Australia probably mislabels roads due to lower traffic volumes. He mentioned that Interstate 95 near Miami has 12 lanes. I said Australia has a smaller population. He told me that's why American civil engineering is more sophisticated and that per capita, Australia should still have proportionally scaled infrastructure. We passed some cane fields and he asked if we were going the right way. I said yes. He checked his phone and announced we'd deviated 200 meters from the suggested route. I explained I was avoiding a slow section. He said that in America, drivers trust navigation technology over personal judgment because algorithms have 99.7% accuracy. His wife suggested I get a dashcam with GPS integration like American cabs have. We arrived in 23 minutes. He said that proved his original point about route efficiency and tipped me $2 on a $60 fare while explaining that American drivers earn tips through optimal routing decisions. I run a car hire desk at Gold Coast Airport, and an American guy rented a sedan for a week. During the briefing, I mentioned he'd need to drive on the left. He said he knew that but asked why Australia still uses the British system. I said it's just how we drive. He replied that in America we drive on the right because it's statistically safer, which is why most developed countries switched. I told him Australia, Japan, the UK, and a bunch of other places drive on the left. He seemed surprised and said he thought only small countries did that. He asked if there'd been studies about switching. I said no. He told me that resistance to change is why Australian road fatality rates are probably higher than America's. I mentioned our rates are actually lower. He said that's impossible with left-side driving unless our population density is much lower, which it is, so it doesn't count. He asked if rental cars come with driver assistance technology. I showed him the parking sensors. He said that American rental fleets have lane departure warnings and adaptive cruise control as standard because we prioritize safety innovation. He wanted to know why Australian cars are 5 years behind. I explained these were new cars with modern features. He replied that modern is relative and that American automotive standards define global benchmarks. He asked if GPS was included. I said yes. He wanted to know if it had real-time traffic. I said yes. He seemed skeptical and mentioned that Australian satellite coverage is probably limited because we're far from major data centers. I handed him the keys. He said he'd leave a review about our vehicle technology gaps and drove off, but returned 20 minutes later because he couldn't figure out the roundabout near the exit. I gave him directions again. He said roundabouts are inefficient traffic control and that America replaced them with signals decades ago for better flow rate. My cousin works the ticket gate at Circular Quay Ferry Terminal in Sydney, and an American family tried to board the Manly ferry with 4 huge shopping bags and a stroller. My cousin mentioned the ferry was almost full and they should wait for the next one in 15 minutes. The dad said they'd paid for tickets and had the right to board. My cousin explained it's a capacity issue. The American replied that in America, ticketed passengers have guaranteed boarding under consumer protection laws and that ferry operators face fines for denying service. He asked to speak to a supervisor. My cousin called her manager, who repeated that they should wait for the next ferry. The mum said this wouldn't happen in America because maritime services plan for peak capacity. The dad added that Sydney ferries obviously lack the scheduling sophistication of New York water taxis. My cousin pointed out that 15 minutes isn't long. The dad replied that time perception differs culturally and that Americans value efficiency more than other nationalities do. He referenced a Harvard study about cultural approaches to waiting. The next ferry arrived and they boarded, but the dad spent the whole trip telling people that Sydney's transit system would benefit from American operational expertise. He took photos of the deck layout and said he'd share them with his transportation logistics forum to illustrate inefficient maritime vehicle design. His mum asked if he was on holiday. He said he was, but that professional observers never stop learning. When they docked at Manly, he told my cousin he'd be writing to Sydney Transport about passenger rights violations and CCING the U.S. consulate because American citizens deserve adequate service standards while traveling abroad. I teach English at a language school in Hobart, and we had an American student join our advanced class for 3 weeks. First session, he corrected my pronunciation of schedule. I use the British pronunciation like most Australians. He said that in America we say it differently and that American English is the international standard because more people speak it globally. I explained we use British Australian English here. He replied that's linguistically isolating and that international students benefit more from American pronunciation because it's used in global business. He suggested I mention both versions for clarity. Another student from Japan said she preferred the Australian accent. The American told her that preference doesn't equal utility and that American English dominates international media, which makes it more practical. He referenced a study about English language film distribution. I moved on with the lesson, but he kept interjecting with American vocabulary alternatives. When I said boot, referring to a car trunk, he told the class that Americans say trunk, and that knowing American terms is essential for international communication. I said both are correct. He agreed but emphasized that American terms are more universally recognized. By the end of 3 weeks, he'd compiled a list of vocabulary differences and gave it to me as a teaching resource. He said he wasn't criticizing, just helping align our curriculum with international standard. The list was 19 pages long. He'd categorized everything by frequency of use in American versus Commonwealth English and included citations from American linguistics journals. He told me he'd had similar experiences in London and Auckland and that English-speaking countries outside America seem resistant to linguistic globalization. He'd probably write about it when he got home.